This course is about the connection between Kabbalah and sexuality. Um, Kabbalah and sexuality, in my eyes, in the way that I learned it, are deeply connected. And I know some people are going to be interested in this course from the side of Kabbalah, and some people are going to be interested in this from the side of sexuality. But for me, and as you will probably understand more as the course goes, it's one thing. Sexuality is not what people think about sexuality in my eyes, and Kabbalah is also very different from what most people see when they, or learn when they go to institutes and that teach Kabbalah. There is a tradition from one of the great masters. His name was the Baal Shem Tov. He lived in the 18th century and was one of the most amazing Kabbalistic, Hasidic masters. And the tradition says that, do you know why this world is not redeemed? Why this world is not complete? Or in the Jewish way, why has Messiah hasn't come yet? That's how the Jewish tradition says. And he answered and he said, because people do not take enough time in the mystery of kissing before intercourse. It's like, it's like, the question is like, a very religious question, and the answer could be understood in a complete sexual way, but also once you understand the language of mysteries, kissing is not only about kissing, and intercourse is not only about intercourse. It's all a Kabbalistic formula that will unpack that, but it's also about that. So what the Baal Shem Tov said is that we as a culture, as humans, we rush too much into the connection of that is sexual, and we don't put enough in the mysteries of hugging and kissing and connecting, what people would call foreplay sometimes, but it's not foreplay, it's play. And this, in his eyes, is why this world is not redeemed. I love this tradition. And also when Dawn, my wife, and I started to teach relationships and sexual work many years ago, we went to get a blessing from our elder, Rabbi Zalman Schachter Shalomi, may he rest in peace. And he gave us the blessing and he said, yes, and don't forget to remind people what the Baal Shem Tov said. These traditions, like whenever you teach sexuality, remind people that the reason that the world is not complete is because people don't take enough time and don't give enough importance to the secret of kissing. Once we unpack it, we'll understand that the secret of kissing is relating to a unique place in the tree of life, and what people relate as intercourse is connected to a different place in the tree of life, and the way that we want to operate in the world is by all those aspects connected, and not just part of it. But let's unpack it. So first, what is Kabbalah? The meaning of the word Kabbalah is receiving, accepting in Hebrew. And it came in a simple way from the sages who started to write it down. It was an oral tradition for thousands of years, actually. And in the 12th, 13th century, Jewish sages started to write it down in Provence and then in Spain. And they say this is the wisdom that we received from our ancestors. And that's why they call it Kabbalah, the wisdom that we received, the received body of knowledge. That's the simple way why it's called Kabbalah. And of course there is an inner meaning because it's all about can we receive? It's the wisdom of being receptive instead of controlling the world and trying to control the world and conquer the world. It's being actually open and receiving reality, the cosmos, the grace of the divine. Other words that were used also in the 12th, 13th century were in Hebrew, derech ha'emet, the path of true, like the true path, which they meant to say like there is a literal meaning to things, but that's not the true meaning. And when we speak mysteries, this is the true meaning of things. Like, for instance, when I spoke about kissing, when you don't know the codes, you think, we're talking about kissing. But that's not the path of truth. The path of truth is yes, and there's layers and layers and layers of meanings underneath that you need to unpack, and then you and that's why they call it the path of truth, and sometimes they call it the path of mysteries or secretive knowledge. And what I love about the way that define secretive knowledge, or derech hasod in Hebrew, is that they say secretive knowledge or mysteries are not something that, it's not a mystery because we don't write it down, or because we don't teach it, or because we don't speak about it. Real mysteries are those things that even when you're doing your best to explain, no one gets it unless they get it. Like, you can speak about the secrets as much as you want, but people don't get it. Basically, it's like taste. If we are now in Thailand and we're filming this beginning, of course, in this beautiful place called the Yoga House in Koh Phangan in Thailand, and there are many fruits here, and you would never be able to explain the exact taste of, I don't know, of papaya to someone who never tasted papaya, right? You can talk about it and say like, yeah, it's kind of tropic, it's kind of like, but it's not really a mango and it's not really a pineapple, it's a papaya. You need to taste papaya. But once you tasted papaya, then you can say like, why, the papaya in Thailand, though, it's really good. And they have a reference, right? So that's the mysteries. Like, you can speak about something, and only those who had a taste of that, they have the aha. And then you can go deeper in that. So that's about the secretive knowledge. And for this reason, for many, many generations, the sages did not write it down. It was an oral tradition that was passed from father to son, from teacher to student, when they felt that the student is ready to receive. They had no thing about age. Many people know that you should not study Kabbalah until you're 40. This is way modern kind of thing. And actually, my teacher of Kabbalah, I studied Kabbalah in the most orthodox places in Jerusalem, from people who studied it in their families for generations and generations. And my private teacher started to learn Kabbalah when he was 13. His father, who was a Kabbalist, took him and started to teach him when he was 13 because he was ready for that. I started to give, my son came to me when he was 7 and he said, I want to be your student, father, and teach me. And I started to give him practices that were real, simple and real. So there was nothing about age, it's about, are you ready? Is your heart ready? And then they would deliver this knowledge, and most of it is being delivered in not by speaking about it, but by example, or by transmission of power, of energy. A lot of it is about living with someone, just seeing how they relate to the world. And only in the 12th, 13th century it started to be written, mainly because they said the first people who started to write it, it was after the 11th century Crusaders' journey, where they said, oh, we are afraid that everybody is being killed, murdered, and ta-da-da, we need to write it down. So that kind of one of the reasons that led to the beginning of writing. And once they started to write, they couldn't stop. There's tons and tons of writings and really thousands of books. I want to speak a little bit about the origin of this wisdom, because yes, we're talking about 12th century, 11th century, but actually this is a thousands of years old mystery school. The Jewish tradition says that it started from Abraham. And for many years, scholars, academic scholars were kind of mocking it as a, sure. It was written in the 13th century, 12th century. But only lately, actually, Professor Moshe Idel from the Hebrew University in Jerusalem and other scholars started to say, actually, there is something to what they say. The roots of this wisdom can be found in 3000 BCE, in the times where kind of Abram lived, in the area where he came from, which is today Iraq, like the big rivers of Mesopotamia. So a lot of the roots of this tradition can be found there, and there are researches and academic works that are showing that. I will go into that later in more depth. But it's important for me to say that because in the way that I understand it, the Kabbalistic wisdom is more ancient than religion, than organized religion. Islam, of course, Christianity, of course, but even Judaism itself. It's a mystery school that once the people became, Judaism became a religion, the mystery school kind of adopted itself into that and started to speak this language using the terms and the terminology and the language and Aramaic and Hebrew, which are ancient languages and they have many layers. But the truth of the matter is actually what the Kabbalists themselves say. And they always said, this is a wisdom we received from generations and generations. And that was the wisdom of the prophets, the ancient prophets, because this wisdom is about walking in the world, in this world, with a heart that is open to the divine. Like if you ask me what is the essence of Kabbalah, is like walking, it's a really realistic path as well. It's like walking in this world. It's about material, being in the material world, completely claiming it, with a heart that is open above and below. Not seeing only the middle world of humans and environment, but also being open to divine realms, of angelic realms, and being open to what people would relate as underworld realms. It's like it's really a vast consciousness. Within this, we have our human connections, and the Kabbalah is kind of holding the full picture of that and how to walk in this world with love, with freedom, and with true authenticity that creates true power from the center. And of course we will go in depth into these three, because these are the three lines of the Tree of Life. The first module of this course is going to be dedicated to the Tree of Life. A little bit about myself. As I said before, I was I dedicated all my young adult life to the study of Kabbalah. I studied in Buddhism and shamanism, really as a seeker, as a young seeker, and found myself into the path of my ancestors and really dove deep into that. I started to teach Kabbalah in Jerusalem. My first class I gave when I was 21 to 3 people that I was assigned to by my masters. Like, oh, teach those people. I'm 52 now, so that's like more than 30 years that I'm teaching, and of course learning all the time. And I have traditional education in this, very traditional. I was very religious and very traditional. I decided to leave this world actually because what I found in the depth of this tradition is the connection to sexuality that is not fully claimed in the traditional world, and that kind of actually led me out to where I'm at now. And probably most of the people who watch this course now would know me as someone who's teaching more the realm of sexual shamanism. Kabbalah for me is a form of sexual shamanism. This course is going to be, because I'm teaching around the planet, I'm very fortunate to be moving around and giving seminars. So next week we're teaching in Thailand. So I'm in Thailand, we're starting here, and at a certain point it will be filmed in different places in the planet. So we're going to kind of take you with me to wherever I am. It's going to be a tour around this beautiful planet until I'm invited to teach in other planets. I'm really open for that too. So thank you for now, and we'll see you in the next chapter. No. I want to each time finish with a little practice. So here's a question for you. It's a big question. What is your relationship between the world of sexuality and the world of spirit? It's a very personal thing. You don't need to, don't send it to me. Just like, but maybe you want to take a time and really write it down. Do they touch? How much? Are they separate? Do you see connections? Do you feel connections? When you're praying or when you're meditating, are you away from sexual energy? Or do you feel it as erotic when you're making love? Do you feel it as a spiritual practice? Do you feel it as a prayer? Do you feel it as a meditative practice? Or is it like, no, just making love? Just for you to kind of record where you are when you're starting this course. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy this course and the invitation for contemplation.